Hello there, this is AM, the Ocarina player, and welcome to another installment of AM's Nostalgia Reviews. Today, I'm looking at easily one of the more overlooked and underappreciated shows of the recent decade, Dragon Booster. Okay, going by your underwhelming excitement, I can already guess what you're thinking. Dragon Booster? Sounds like some kind of English-Japanese RPG title. Well, I'm here today to teach you all how to release this hidden gem of a show.
The dragon is power. Once they were our equals.
I gotta tell you, when I saw the trailer for this back in late 2003, I was totally blown away. High-speed racing, anime meets comic book art style, futuristic worlds and technology, heart-pounding music, and absolutely incredible creature design. For me, this show had everything. I'm not kidding, people. I became such a geek for this show that even after not seeing it in 10 years, I could still recite the opening monologue from memory. From memory, people! And it's clearly not just me who thought the show was great. Apparently it did so well, not only in North America, but worldwide, it won the prestigious Gemini Award for being Best Animated Show or Series in 2004. But is it possible that because I'm such a diehard fan of this show that I'm blinded to its faults? I mean, let's face it, Drac looks alone do not an awesome show make. With that being said, I think it's high time to mag on, gear up, and dive into Dragon Booster to once and for all get the facts on why this show was, and still is, a worthy contender for Best Animated Show in the history of all-time everything. First, a little history. Dragon Booster was created back in 2004 by Kevin Mower and written by Rob Travaglino of the Story Hat Company based in Vancouver. The series was animated by newly formed Nerdcore Entertainment using cel-shade animation, where you take a 3D model and color and shade it to look like 2D. Other more famous uses of this animation can be seen in Beautiful Joe and Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Since both the writing and the animation for Dragon Booster are Canadian, I'm going to go out on a limb and proclaim that Dragon Booster is as proudly Canadian as maple syrup. The story, which is where we'll start, takes place on the planet Draconis, in a place called, oddly enough, Dragon City, where people live with and race these giant reptilian animals called dragons. Think horse racing meets F-Zero meets Road Rash. Though these don't look like the dragons of popular mythology, they more than make up for their lack of normalcy with the fact that they can run like greased lightning, jump, and... Oh, did I forget to mention that their bones contain a ferrous metal called draconium that allows them to magnetically attach like metal equipment to themselves? Okay, enough of the history lecture, people. Time to take a look at the first episode of Dragon Booster and see just how well this dragon holds up after a 10-year slumber. For as long as anyone can remember, dragons and humans have lived and coexisted peacefully and... Yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna let the show do the talking.
3,000 years ago, a great dragon-human war threatened to rip apart the planet. But a single golden dragon, the last of its kind, chose a human to be his hero. A Dragon Booster. This Dragon Booster and the last Gold Dragon released the full power of the dragon. Stop the fight by turning all dragons back to gold.
Here we meet our first main antagonist, Word Paint, voiced by Mark Oliver, and his son, Mordred, voiced by Trevor Duvall, who was also the voice of Conan's dad in Hamtaro. What? Seriously? Huh. I guess he just turns up the dorkometer and bingo, instant Mordred. As it turns out, the previously extinct gold-boned dragon has been successfully bred back into present-day Dragon City.
By my dear old friend, Connor Penn.
As it turns out, Word wants to start his own dragon-human war with himself as Grand Poobah once the dust settles, so he tells his son to do what he's always done. Do the dirty work for his dad and steal the black and gold dragon of legend so as to keep him from finding a new Dragon Booster, thus ensuring his victory. After a brief segue showing what Dragon City looks like, we're soon introduced to Artha Penn, voiced by Kira Yamato.
Kira Yamato! Freedom! Let's do it!
I mean Laucorn Gaudamus from that crummy Fatal Fury movie.
Terry Bogard.
I mean Birdie from Zigbee.
Zigby isn't trotting into trouble. He's hammering and sawing into trouble.
I mean Canadian Vic Mañana, Matt Hill. Artha, as it seems, is like any other teenager who enjoys spending his free time playing vid games with his best friend and number one geek, Parman Sean, voiced by Lee Tokar, who for some reason reminds me of Usopp, scared of his own shadow but will never leave his friends high and dry. But Artha and Parm's playtime is interrupted as we're soon introduced to Bucephalus, or Bo. He, like Artha, is a teenager dragon who would rather scarf down Draconi Yumbars than do anything remotely serious. Artha gives Bo the gears about what a dumb dragon he is, and they both stomp off. Interesting thing about Bo, though, is some fans consider him to be the true main character of Dragon Booster. Seeing as unlike most all other dragons we see, they created a laugh just for Bo.
Your big fat head.
I wouldn't be laughing about big fat heads if I were you.
As well as have him react to a lot of human dialogue, whether directed at him or not, clearly indicating near-human intelligence. Next, we meet Artha's little brother Lance, voiced by Kathleen Barr,
I do? Wait. No, I don't.
and their father, Connor Penn, voiced by Gary Chalk.
There are great things in store for all of you. I should know. I raised you all from pups.
And yes, if any of you are wondering out there, they did in fact base a lot of character names off of those you read in the Arthurian legends. Artha Penn comes from King Arthur Pendragon, Lance is from Sir Lancelot, and Mordred, surprisingly enough, is taken from King Arthur's illegitimate son, Mordred. Have fun finding the rest of the subtle homages to other literatures in here. Speaking of ancient lore, Connor is holding auditions for writers for Bo to choose from. As it turns out, Connor secretly suspects Bo to be the Dragon of Legend reborn, and that whoever he chooses will become the next Dragon Booster. Connor takes Artha aside a moment and tells him that not only is there another dragon-human war on the horizon and the truth about Bo, but also he gives Artha his first sliver of ancient knowledge in the form of a star-shaped amulet meant to be given to the new Dragon Booster. However, Bo decides to partake in some childish shenanigans, tossing his riders in every silly way possible, snickering all the while. During the auditions, we're introduced to, Kit Wan, the token feminist character, voiced by Lenore Zan. I tell ya, I could punch this better than that little know-it-all in the face. I hate her so much. But don't worry, Bo does us all a favor.
Now, pay attention.
She's on.
That's how it's done.
Thank you! After a long day of rider tossing, everyone turns in for the night. But not before Mordred and his band of merry marauders, the Dragon Eye crew, show up not once, but twice to steal Bo. First time being driven off by Connor, and the second time planting bombs in the stables and house, destroying a third of the Penn estate. In all the fire and chaos, Connor goes missing, and Artha and Lance become trapped in their house. Bo hears their pleas for help, breaks free of his captors, rescues Artha, and wouldn't you know it, Bo chooses the one human he's known and trusted his whole life to become the hero of time, legend, who's meant to save all human and dragon kind from war and bring unity to both sides once and for all.
No pressure, huh?
During all these astounding revelations, we get a brief glimpse at one of the single best minor characters in the show, Kane, voiced by Scott McNeil. I don't know whose job it was to hire this guy, but I hope they got a raise, because nothing, and I mean nothing, is better than when you take a guy who can go from intimidating the heck out of us with,
You will understand our ultimate cause soon enough.
to making us die laughing with,
And that's how you bake cookies.
now that's a voice actor, people! Artha and Bo catch up with Lance, who escaped through the ventilation systems in the house.
We escaped through the ventilation system.
Okay, I've had my fun. They manage to escape the Dragon Eyes and meet up with Parman. After being given some harsh news about their dad, Artha takes it upon himself to enter the all-city street races to make ends meet so they won't starve, as well as to track down the people who destroyed their lives. But an extinct black and gold dragon would kind of stick out like a sore thumb on a racetrack, wouldn't it? But not to worry, gold dragons come in all colors of the rainbow, apparently. Well, all 12 colors originally came from gold, so yeah, I guess that's right. And there's the first episode of Dragon Booster, people. For the rest of the show, I'm just going to give you guys a primer course. But before we get to that, there's one other major character we need to meet in episode 2, Mortis, the Dragon Priest, who becomes Artha's mentor in the ancient ways and new teacher in how to release the most overused catchphrase in the show. Release the dragon. And when is his identity revealed? Not till the end of season 2? Not bad, show. Now, granted, most fans already guessed who Mortis really was, but I'm not going to spoil it for any newbies out there, nor does it take away from the emotional impact of the big reveal later on. Though the following episodes of the series are relatively self-contained, they do a surprisingly good job stringing along a cohesive underlying plot, not something often seen in a world of SpongeBob SquarePants Western cartoon writing. If it's not the writing that draws you in, and hey, why wouldn't it? It's the fact that this fantasy world is so mind-bogglingly layered and complex. This show has its own history as well as mythology. Heck, they even wrote a freaking alphabet for Dragon Booster. No, seriously, you can download it as a font. Then there are the dragons themselves, which are in and of themselves pretty darn impressive, seeing as there are 12 different classes to choose from. But, like any good show, there are always going to be some flaws. So, let's at least be fair and look at Dragon Booster's flaws, shall we? For one, it's a kids' show. They've got pratfalls, smarty comebacks.
Whoa! Oh. Maybe you should start with the practice walk.
Laugh it up, Dragon Breath.
Childish sound effects that range from...
That's not funny.
I don't know. It looks pretty funny from here. You were really scared.
to...
I was almost trampled by this stable brat and his dragon.
But by far the worst would be all the comic book style cliches, including, but not limited to, the transformation sequence for the Dragon Booster. But, to the show's credit, it's only a mere 20-some seconds long compared to some other transformations, and by the time you're halfway through Season 2, it's all but gone. Other big cliche issues would be the Release the Dragon,
Release the dragon!
easily on record for most overused catchphrase in existence, but again, to credit, it's not half as bad as some of the more infamous cliches out there. Also, I will say that there are a few dud episodes here and there that, despite trying, are just really lame and kiddie in comparison to other episodes. A good rule of thumb is, if it's written by Rob Travolino, then you're in for storytelling gold. Second would be the relatively lackluster array of secondary characters. I mean, granted, they're interesting enough, but you know, it'd be nice if every other line of theirs wasn't a pun. I'm not kidding. All they say half the time is spew pun.
Hey, all I'm asking is that we spread the heat around.
After a pun.
I lead this council, Payne. I keep a tight grip on things, and I've won the right to do so by force.
After a pun.
Time to heat things up. Oh no.
Looks like the heat's on you now.
After scale-scraping pun! Pyra and Fistus are probably the biggest repeat offenders. Thirdly, would be some of the new age gray area lessons they try to subtly shove down our throats. I mean, I can dig some of the morals Dragon Booster teaches, like the importance of teamwork, having confidence in yourself, and to never give up, but there are just some that really rub me the wrong way, like...
Tomorrow, a team's strength does not come from the individual, but when each becomes part of the one.
My dad always said that humans and dragons are meant to live together and be friends. That we have to learn to release the powers of the dragon in ourselves.
Do not fear them just because there are things about them you do not know. They may seem different, but deep down inside, most of us are very much the same.
Oh yeah, like deep down inside, a terrorist is the same as a nun. See? Even prophecy is sick of your gray area bullshit. Fourth would be the frequent reuse of character models and clips throughout the show. For example, this poor sap gets taken out by an energy drain whip 1, 2, 3 times, all from different episodes with different color schemes. Honestly, what's that guy's story? What did he ever do to deserve such crummy treatment? Lastly, you know, Nerdcore, I know you guys were just starting out when you did Dragon Booster, but couldn't you get just one guy to proof watch your episodes for incompleted helmets, wrongly colored dragons, and incompleted dragon faces? Gah! Before you air them? Honestly, that's some kind of freaky juju. In the show's defense, I will say that these animation flubs are not as bad or as frequent as I'm making them out to be. If anything, they're actually kind of fun to watch for. Next on the list, I suppose, would be a brief gloss over the characters. In order of appearance, we'll start with Word Payne. In all honesty, he's actually a really interesting villain once you start to delve into the history of Dragon Booster as a whole. He's not plotting a dragon-human war for the sake of bloodshed, but because he's the type who believes, or has deluded himself into believing, that from chaos comes order. War is coming whether I like it or not, but if I have the power to control the war, I have the power to stop the war. Ha 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 ha! That's a lot more clever than just your typical villain. And to be even more honest, he can be pretty darn intimidating and cruel when it comes to trying to catch the black and gold dragon. His plans range from diabolical draconian poisoning to a flower that zombifies people. What the heck?
Is he serious? Are you serious?
Who put that there? You're like the Bill Gates of this universe, and the best you can come up with after 3 seasons is a flower that zombifies people? And need we forget his little bouts of hysteria? Okay, so maybe he's not a perfect villain, but I guess that's what makes him so believable. He's still human and fragile, and is still more than capable of some pretty stupid stunts now and then. Next we have Mordred, who's easily the most complex character in the show, because he's less of a villain and more of a product of his environment. He's only his dad's henchman because he's never been told any better. That power and control are everything, and that compassion is weakness. That's all fine and well, but even with that, he could still be a one-dimensional character. But what's cool is throughout the story, we begin to see Mordred develop and soon realize what kind of a man his father really is, and what kind of a man he really is. I won't give any more spoilers than that, so I'll simply leave regarding Mordred Payne as true chaotic neutral. In stark contrast, Artha is ironically one of the least complex characters. A lot of people complain that he can be really stupid or a stereotypical Marty Sue character. Well, they're not wrong. But I will say in his defense, if you were a teenager again and was told you had to save the world, I'd be willing to bet you'd be just as dumb some days. To be honest, I feel they did a good job putting some very human character into Artha. I mean, think about it. Being a hero's tough enough, but being a hero in training? That's just brutal. They did well showing that in Artha's character and how over the course of the series, he begins to have a greater understanding and appreciation for what's expected of him. Heck, in the Chromatic Dragon, Artha has a freaking meltdown over the pressure he's under. If you still think he's a lame character, then I'll say this much. Everybody's got problems. Then we have Lance, who's like any other 10-year-old in that he's hyperactive, immature, and clumsy. But again, they put a lot of work into this character, giving him a quiet maturity beyond his years as the story progresses, as well as a genuine love for his family that is more than happily discarded in modern cartoons. Sadly, Connor Penn is not in the series enough to warrant a full analysis, but for what time we do see him, he's easily a contender for most kick-ass cartoon dad. He loves his kids more than some real people, and even though he had to follow classic modern storytelling in that they killed him off for the better part of the show, he never abandoned his kids completely, being there to give them advice when they needed it, like how most young people should view their parents. I already said what I liked about Parman earlier. He's a scaredy cat genius that later on in the story can be summed up as...
Let's just say I'm a lot stronger than I look.
Well put, Parmesan.
And it's not Parmesan. That's the name of a cheese.
And then there's Kit. Kit. Okay, first off, I'm gonna say, being based off the fire element in the show, she fits that element to a T. But cheapers! Couldn't they make her at least not such a bratty know-it-all? Best example for this would be here.
And if Mordred gets the bone marks, Word gets them. It's a race, and we'll get there first.
Get where, Kit?
I think you get the idea. She's not a bad character for what they based her off of, and she's a decent team player, but I just wish she wasn't such a smartass or the archetypal female lead for the show. You know, kid, maybe you should just stick to playing a tooth fairy.
Put your glasses on. Who needs glasses? Who needs them anyway?
Well. Safe to say if you've stuck around this long, I've thoroughly convinced you of how awesome a show Dragon Booster is, and you're just clamoring for more than what I've already shown. Well, I have some rather terrible news for you then. Dragon Booster, after 39 episodes, was cancelled. Now I'm sure you're wondering, why? In 2006, nearing the end of the show's run, Matt Hill was asked why Dragon Booster was not receiving a fourth season. He simply replied, the producer said we weren't receiving enough views to justify more episodes. Oh, bull class you weren't! My money would be more on that someone, Disney, wasn't getting their paws greased enough or said we want a bigger slice of the dragon pie. Kevin Mower or Rob Travolino said no, and Disney said fine, have fun, and pulled the plug. You guys had the Canadian equivalent of Avatar The Last Airbender in the palm of your hand and you wasted it! And I mean, for crying out loud, they had some big freaking plans for Dragon Booster. They had McDonald's toys, action figures, trading cards, and TV show tie-in books. They also had in the works a line of t-shirts to be sold at Zellers. They even had a live-action movie planned to be told by Tanis the Dragon Priest who raised Connor. A friggin' movie, people! But no! Someone decided to be a jackarse and pull the plug. So that means, and I apologize for spoilers here, we'll never get to see if Armageddon will resurrect the League of Eight. We'll never get to see if Parman becomes the Power Booster, or anyone else for that matter. We'll never get to see if Mordred rebels against his father and fights the good fight. We'll never get to see if Artha completes his training as the Dragon Booster, or get to even see the inside of Dragon Booster Academy. We'll never get to... Sorry, I just tend to get a little antsy about that. Okay, The finish line's just ahead, so I think it's time to wrap things up. Overall score for Dragon Booster? A Gold Draconium 4.5 out of 5 from me. Sure, its animation's a little dated by today's standards, and it's got its lame-o, goofy, cliche moments and less than kosher new age lessons to stuff down our throats. But overall, it's a really solid story with loads of creativity and heart that more than make up for its shortcomings. And in the special thanks category, we have the Dragon Booster fan site, dragoncity.org. For without their vast information, much of this review would not have been possible. Everything from lists of all the toys that have been made and comprehensive character bios to insightful Q&As with the creators of Dragon Booster. Also, an extra big thanks to the Dragon Booster Academy Forum for collecting all the different links of Dragon Booster sites, including a new petition you can sign for new episodes. All links can be found in the description. Feel free to join the forum group. We're really quite friendly. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Ocarina performances. God bless and have a good one, guys.